they weren't that expensive, it was definitely worth the investment.
Like when you go to the IRE, you don't want to be the guy that
a cup of coffee. I sat in the wall.
Like every contractor is always looking for that. Like, you're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Aline, the co-author of the books Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and The Best Known Roofer. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the leading digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. I appreciate all the likes, all the subscribes, all the comments, some great reviews. Thank you guys. If you want to take the conversation beyond what you're just listening to here, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. Today we got John Hogan on. How are you, man?
Doing well. How about yourself, Jim?
Good. So, John, let's tell us the story of how you got into roofing and Blue Nail.
Sure. So I think like most people, at least a good portion, grew up in the industry. I was exposed to it at a young age. My father was in it for 49, almost 50 years. And he had retired as I was getting out of college. So I grew up in it. I was at the point, I was doing financial internships. So Morgan Stanley, and I was about to enter Merrill Lynch. And I'm kind of sitting down, they give out this welcome paper to everybody. And it's like, who do you know that has a net worth over $1 million? Who could you cold call that? And that was like kind of shocking. I was pretty naive to the world of finance and the way that it actually worked. So I'm sitting down like, I don't know anybody. So I kind of thought about it. My father had just retired. Some of his competitors were going out. I'm sitting around like, look, everybody that I just finished up my MBA, all my friends are kind of doing the same thing. We're going, Wall Street, finance, all these kind of things. And nobody that I know has any idea about roofing. I'm like, maybe I should pivot, kind of do what everyone else isn't, see how it works out. At that point in my life, I didn't have a family, I didn't have responsibility, I didn't have a mortgage, anything like that. So took the risk. I had a lot of support from my family. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have made the leap on my own. And it's worked out so far. So
you have a degree in finance and became a contrarian investor.
Yeah, that's good to put it. Something like that.
Right? Like, all my friends are going this way. Let's go the path that no one else, where no one else is. And I guess you did you take over your father's company or did you start your own?
I started my own. Yeah, I'm from more of central Jersey, and he had retired. I had gotten engaged. We moved up to Morris County, which is northern New Jersey. And yeah, we started this about 6 years ago now.
What was that, growing up in roofing, right? Were you the kid that was out there, like on the jobs with dad, hey, you're coming this weekend. We gotta go work, or how was that for you growing up?
A little bit. I did a lot of estimates. So I did a lot of going to the house, doing the inspection, taking photos, doing measurements. It's crazy to think of back then. We were high tech for what it was. And we were using like cameras with floppy disks in them and uploading and all that. So I did a lot of estimates. We did some work, but it was limited. To my father's credit, he was always kind of like, hey, learn enough to know what you're doing, but stay behind the desk, make sure you're in a position to scale. So
that's an interesting lesson, right? Because I don't know how to say it, but roofers of the old generation, a lot of there was even like, there's kind of a stigma in the industry that there's not a lot of professionalism in the industry. Right. And to me, that is like a real business mindset. And so having your father in, that had a business for, what'd you say, like 40 years of roofing business?
Yeah, almost 50.
Yeah, almost 50 years and working through that era of roofing, which it was kind of a, the not, it wasn't as professional as it is these days. Right. And to have that mindset to pass that on to you, hey, learn enough on the jobs to be able to estimate them, bid them, but don't be but be the business owner. Is that the lesson?
Yeah, that was definitely the lesson. Do it enough times that you know how to do it. But you don't necessarily need enough reps to be that all-star, roofer. Leave that to the guys that really should be up there doing it.
Yeah, like when you go to the IRE, you don't want to be the guy that wins the fastest nailer competition at the OC booth, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, look, there's nothing against that. That's their role. It's what you're good at. I can tell you, I am much better suited behind a desk than up on a roof.
Yeah.
And I'm also like 6'5", so I think my back would be shot by now. Yeah, I find your strength and play to it. Don't try to be something you're not. Is kind of what I would say. I have a ton of respect for guys that are up there doing that.
Oh yeah,
day. I definitely don't want that to be.
No, for sure. That is a business in itself, right? Like that's the trade is something different, but business ownership can be a separate thing, right? Like understanding business ownership and running a business. Absolutely. One of the things we talked about when we were chatting a while ago was like, you saw like that generation that you grew up with your father and like the competitors and things like that in his generation retiring, and that was an opportunity. Speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So I'm 31. So growing up, my generation, I felt was very much pushed. Hey, you got to go to college. You got to, higher education is great. And it is. I'm very involved with the college that I went to. I believe in it. I think higher education is great. Goes to exactly what we just talked about. Each person play to your strengths. Like it's for some, not everybody. And yeah, it was kind of, hey, you got to go to college. You got to get into corporate. For me, we're in North Jersey. Like a lot of people are commuting to the city. So like that's the game here. And not a lot of guys I grew up with or my friends were doing much construction work or anything like that. Maybe some basic labor stuff, throwing out trash, but not really learning the ins and outs of the business, especially from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I was more, get into New York City, get to Wall Street or something along those lines, and do what you can with it.
Yeah, it's sexier to be like, work on Wall Street, right?
It still is. It's not a bad thing, but everybody's doing it. Like I felt, especially for my family, my mom would prop me up. Oh yeah, he's doing his MBA and he's going to do this and do that. I'm sitting at, the Merrill welcome thing. I'm looking around. I'm nothing. Everybody has their MBA. I'm not special. Everybody there is smart. I'm not special. Yeah. Everybody has drive and is willing to hustle and cold call. And like, it was kind of it was a humbling experience.
How long did you spend there in that environment?
A cup of coffee. I sat in the I talked to my finance teacher the next day, and he gave me the ins and outs of it, and he really described, and he was influential on that too. He was like, look, now as you're young, take a chance on what you think you could do. This will always be here. You have the connections from the school and from the internships and everything. Not to call it a fallback, but those connections aren't going to go away.
Yeah, so that's something to think about is like when you see these careers like high finance and things like that. There's the movies that have been created about it, right? But it's like they're call centers in a lot of ways, right? They're highly educated call centers.
Yeah, it's a lot of marketing and intern. I definitely did a lot of what I would consider marketing.
Yeah.
It's an interesting role.
What lessons did you take from that experience in college and that kind of the view into that world that you've kind of like said, "Hey, this is how I can implement some of that stuff over here in the trades, in the blue collar industry."
Yeah, at the time I didn't realize it, but looking back, like I just mentioned, it was very, even though it was in finance, I was doing a lot of marketing things. So, for instance, I'm a sophomore in college at this point, and I'm taking the trip over to Morgan Stanley. I'm working with a finance group, and they have me identifying high net worth individuals in certain zip codes, creating mailers to them, putting together a meeting, a learning meeting. It was like a seminar basically of how that financial team could help these individuals grow. And I was able to get a lot of them to show up. I'm sure mostly because it was free food and really good restaurant. But that was, I went there thinking, oh, I'm going to learn numbers and algorithms and all these different things. And that was not it. So it was very much an entrepreneurial experience that I didn't realize in that moment.
That's interesting because like every contractor is always looking for that, like the good jobs, right? Right. Like if I put it that way, right? The good jobs, the big jobs, the people who can afford to hire them and not, and so, now, how have you taken that? Like before you were identifying these specific individuals and then you had to get them to this luncheon. What's the carryover that you've made into the business?
Yeah. So again, back then I thought what I was doing was recruiting the only people that could afford this financial group or the only people that qualify. I was naive to that. And looking back, that was their target market. They could work with anybody, but there were certain zip codes that they had connections in and that they found success in. And there was a certain, wealth and home value that they worked with, that they just had a system set up for when they brought you in. Each person is unique and individual, but they've already worked with clients exactly like you, or at least close enough like you that they could drop you into their system, and they already know how to diversify your portfolio and how to move forward with finding what your goals are and getting you there. The goals I feel in their clientele were very similar. Instead of working with everyone, among the spectrum of wealth and all these other things and all these other goals, they would have to individualize it a lot more than what they had to do by working with a certain client.
So how do you do that with Blue Nail now?
So
what marketing efforts do you do in Blue Nail, I guess is the big question, right? Like, how do you market yourself?
Yeah. So we do a lot, and I don't think anything that we do is super secret or special. I think we just execute it. And what I've learned, I could get into some of those things, but I think what I've learned is building the brand for the long term, even though it's frustrating when you first get started and you don't want to hear it. And you're like, I need clients right now. I totally understand that. But it really is, it's a slow game. It compounds over time, but you've got to put in the work and you've got to believe. And I know it's scary at times, but you got to believe that it does work out, that you're doing the right things and you're following the right processes. Because in my opinion, these gimmicky type of marketing ploys, they don't work. And if they do, they're short-lived. It's not something that you can go from, let's just say you're a $5 million in revenue company. If you just 10x your marketing budget, you're not going to do 50 million the following year. Like, forget infrastructure and processes and systems. Like, forget all of that. Just marketing and sales wise, you're not going to do it, period. You're not going to bring in that amount of leads. It's a slow, methodical, compounding process, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so I think you had some interesting things that you've done along the way that others weren't doing though, right? Like you guys started doing a lot of drone stuff early on and incorporating that into your social media and stuff, right? Or was it Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So we were doing drones in 2017, and I'm sure people were doing it, but
yeah,
not that I saw at least, and certainly not like today. So at the time, it was innovative. It was cool. I was kind of puzzled as to why no one else was doing it. They were more expensive than they are today, but they weren't that expensive.
yeah.
It was definitely worth the investment. So drones, we were taking videos. We went out and reached out to a media company at the time, and we were like, "Hey, we're starting to run Facebook ads. We're seeing that they're really cheap." At the time, this was like the whole cable cord cutting phase
Mm.
where everybody was kind of like, "Oh, I'm getting rid of my cable and I'm going to start doing." Netflix was not what Netflix is today. There weren't a million streaming services, but it was starting. And we went to the media company and we're like, "Hey, we want to work out a proposal on a package of you guys come out. We have the drones and stuff. We can take basic content for you, but I want you guys to come out and shoot high-end stuff at our project. And we want to run commercials essentially through Facebook and don't even think about TV. Like we want that exposure through social and we'll target it that way." And through that really got us our launch. And this is like, we're in Jersey. We're not a door knocking
Yeah.
market, in my opinion. At least our company doesn't really do it. But it was boots on the ground when we first started, right? So we had to. And I was kind of lucky. I came across a few neighborhoods that were built by the same builder about, at the time, it was like 16, 17 years ago. And it all sparked because I was driving with somebody and they were like, "Oh, look at that roof shiny. Like, what shingle is that?" I didn't really understand it. I went back and I looked at it. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is defective." You're seeing the fiberglass mat because all the granules had fallen off. So I started sending out mailers and knocking on those doors. And it was just me. Like I had all the time in the world because it was all 100% business, right? And I had no real customers at the time. I wasn't backed up with production. So I'm handwriting letters, I'm knocking on doors, I'm talking to people. And it finally, like the first one landed and then the second one. And the more social proof that I had of, hey, your roof is shiny. Like in general, shiny is a good thing. You want things to be shiny. In your case, it is not good. It's your potential. You could have leaks. You probably already do. You're exposing yourself to all the things health wise and different kind of risks. And the longer you wait, you're going to have worse plywood, more damage, so on and so forth. And I kind of became the expert in just that defective shingle. And it, like I said before, it compounded. We did one, then we did two, then it became four, it became eight. We were taking over, these neighborhoods at a time. And we were putting it out on social. I'm like, "Oh God, I hope nobody sees this. Like, I need these roofs. I need these shiny roofs." So
you had, okay. I got a couple of things to unpack there. So the first thing is in those early days, right? I believe that it's almost all hustle, right? Like there's a hustle to it. A lot of people look for like a magic pill in that phase, right? They're looking for like just this, like, man, I'm going to run, I could run Facebook ads and generate leads, and then that's going to be it. And I'm going to make it. I'm going to get to 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. Like, I'm going to just do what you said is I'm going to create a commercial on Facebook. What year was that?
17, maybe 18 by the time we approached the media company. But
so that was like 2017, 18, like that was lead gen time on Facebook. That was before people were before Facebook was oversaturated with leads, right? Or with ads. And so to have the foresight to say, I'm running TV commercials, right? Because this is one of the points I make all the time. Like Facebook is like the television of today.
Sure.
Like, because people are it's just where eyeballs are. That's all television is. It's only because people are watching specific shows at specific times, and more people watch this show versus that show. And so the cost for a commercial on this show is more because more people watch it, right? Like that's all television is. It's just being in front of people. It's not a direct attribution lead like type of thing. So to be able to say, I'm going to run commercials on Facebook. Like people are unplugging from their cable and they're going over here and they're on the internet. They're on Facebook. They're on different metrics. Like that's an interesting thing that like you have to have some, I don't know, like faith in the outcome to do that. Right. What was that? Where did that come from?
I don't know what it was. I'm not a media person. Like my personal social media is very inactive. Like that's not my thing. That's not who I am. But in terms of the business, I was dying for how can I change this? Like I keep on, people tell me that I'm technologically savvy and that I'm doing things so much differently than the roofing industry. But I'm in my mind, like, what is it though? What am I doing that's so different? And how can I continue doing it? So the drones were one thing. We started posting them. I can't tell you how many people, like at the time, I guess drones weren't that popular. The amount of people that would comment and say like, oh, what did you do? Did you climb a tree? And
how did you do this? Yeah.
So those were cool. The media company, I guess it was just kind of a collaboration.
Yeah.
I had an idea of what I was looking for and I didn't know exactly how to execute it. They brought all the editing and all of that together. They put music to it. And I was like, this is it. It wasn't your infomercial, right?
Yeah.
It was almost like a highlight reel. It was kind of getting people excited about roofing, what it could be and what it could look like. And then like at that point we were just running Facebook ads. We were boosting posts. Like we weren't even doing anything that was that advanced. Then I started learning about remarketing and retargeting and how targeted you could actually get with some of these. A lot of the stuff you can't even do anymore. So back then it was super cheap and you had access to like really identify the exact demographic that you wanted. Today, like with all the security, things changed. Back then we were dialing right into whoever we wanted and we were blasting them with drone shots. And they were like, hey, were you climbing trees and doing roofs? And that was kind of how it evolved. So.
Just like Morgan Stanley was like, this person in this neighborhood, we want to talk to them. We want them at our luncheon, right? Like you could get so dialed in demographically on Facebook years ago. Like it was creepy. And
it didn't feel legal.
It was, exactly. Like,
it was, you wanted the woman of a household in her 40s that likes wine and yoga and exact zip code in a house over $750,000. Like you really dial in.
Yeah. Do you live in? Are you someone who loves yoga and red wine, and you live in the Oak Hills neighborhood?
Right.
Do you have a shiny roof? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
It was so crazy.
For these people,
Yeah. But so the other thing that you did is you identified a market. This is another thing that I heard you talk about. You identified a market. You identified, oh, wait, there's a problem with these shingles. And then how did you realize that it was a specific builder?
I just started, I talked to these homeowners and they were all, they're big homes, but they were all built. It was like tract home type of deal. So you find out these pockets of where the builder was and really just driving around. If you're blinded by somebody's house, chances are they have a shiny roof. So, we found them. There's only a couple of them left and we're going to get them. But there were a lot back then. And so we found out who the builder was. We found out the pockets of where they were. Because a lot of these people, like I said, the house, they were built like 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them were original owners and they knew the ins and outs of who they bought it from, how it was built, who did it. So they gave us a lot of information.
And that's that information that, I mean, a lot of that's public record. Like you can find this stuff, right? So you can go and look up who pulled these permits. Oh, this builder pulled all these permits. And you could go back and go, oh, here's the addresses of all the permits that builder pulled. And right, like you could really, if you wanted to go like demographically look at, for this stuff, that's a way to do it. That ingenuity, like it's not something that most people do. Like wherever it came from with you, right? Like to go, and then, it's the builder. And then, let's go and find more of these. And like, there's, you have to, everyone should be looking for opportunities like this. At least let's just make it easy for you. Like homes that have been built in within that 15 to 20 year range.
Absolutely. And life's funny the way that it works. As we're talking, I've never mentioned this on any other media or anything, but now that I think about it, I could not get general liability insurance. People wouldn't like buy into me. They're like, who is this kid trying to do roofing? And somebody, as we're driving, mentioned the shiny roof thing to me. I looked into it. I looked up. I got all the information, and I put a business plan together on how I was going to get my first 10 roofs. And I presented that to the insurance carrier, the only guy that was like even having a conversation with me. And that's how I got insurance to even start my company.
Wow.
Was finding the shiny roof. Yeah.
That's crazy. But that's initiative, right? I think that's a lesson for people is like we get a lot of times we go, man, not insurable.
Right.
Right. Like that's it. Like that's and stop. Right. Like that's it. Like, I guess I'm going to go get a job now. Right. There's pushing through those obstacles, right, is what really creates something. So neighborhoods we talked about, like I thought that was an interesting one, man. Like there's pools of potential clients in everyone's market. Mm-hmm. They're there. You have to go and get them. If you're waiting for that to happen, it's a much more challenging route to go. You have to put yourself out there. The other thing you mentioned was that you didn't want others to see.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because in the beginning, it's like, oh my goodness, man, like some of these bigger companies, they're going to just come in and just like take this over.
Yeah.
But you still put it out on social media. And you still did it, right? And it, like, did it happen? Did someone swoop in and like challenge you on these jobs, or like try to get as many of these as possible too, or no?
Not that I'm aware of, at least. So I mean, selfishly, I'm like, oh man, I hope no other contractor like need this.
You found your honey hole, right? Like
the homeowners to find it, and in retrospect,
I know a lot of storm restoration contractors that are like that. Like when they'll find these little pockets that other contractors have, and they're like afraid to put their signs in the yard, because as soon as the signs in the yard, like you're like, it's going to attract other companies. But
absolutely,
it's so funny. So along the way, parlaying these videos into Facebook ads, you had your shiny roof program. What other marketing efforts did you do around that kind of shiny roof program?
So around the shiny roof program I mentioned the mailers, I mentioned going to the neighbors, knocking on the doors. When the project was started, we had a whole process, and again, this is 5 years ago. I don't think many people were doing it. Today, I think everybody knows about it, just whether you're executing on it or not. And it's, hey, you go out there, send out postcards to the neighbor. You're part in the noise. Be polite. Hey, our trucks are going to be in the area. If you need us to move, if there's an inconvenience, here's our number. We're very soft, educational and value type of sale. We're not pushy. Get in your house, spend 6 hours there. We're not that type of deal. So We talk about, hey, there's an upcoming project. Then, hey, your neighbor's getting their project done now. Then, hey, we just did your neighbor. Look how great it came out. Do you want us to take a look at yours? While we're doing that, we'll, nowadays, like we said, the demographic capability has changed, but you could still do a 1 mile radius around the jobs that you're doing. And, the size, depending on the size of your company, this is something it's easy to do when you're doing one job, a day or a week or wherever you're at. It's another animal when there's a whole system going and you got to keep up with it. So yeah, that's still the system that we're running today.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to, when you're doing a job, do a good job and talk to the neighbors. It's really as simple as that.
It's amazing to me. I've talked to owners so many times, and owners who are selling, but owners who have sales reps that they're like, we just can't get them to knock the neighbors. Like, as you've grown your company, and I don't know how many sales reps you have now or whatever, but like, how have you kept that going?
Yeah, so we have a sales team of 6, and we do, but we don't. We don't often knock. We did more pre-COVID, but again, our knock was very, hi, my name is John. You could see our vans. We're working right here. If any plastic blows into your yard, give us a call. Here's my card, that type of deal. Today, we're doing more like we'll tape something to a mailbox just saying kind of the same thing. Our demographic, like we talked before, target market, we do a lot of higher end homes that are set back from the road and have a lot of property. So if you're going to knock on their door, you're kind of walking down a pretty long driveway to get there. And, things have kind of changed in the past few years. So people aren't, at least around here, really answering the door. They might, if you're lucky, talk to you through their Ring camera. So that's kind of what we've been doing. We shifted to, hey, let's just respect their privacy in their yard. And, I think it's fair for us to just tape something to the mailbox, letting them know that we're right here. And if they need something from us, here's the best number to call. We're local. We'll come out. We'll take care of it. If something, if our van is parked too close to their driveway and they're having a party and they need us to move, stuff like that.
Yep. And I mean, I'm good friends with Adam Bensman, like the roof strategist. He has so many videos about this specific thing, right? Like that it's the, that, and I've talked to him about it a lot. I've talked to a lot of other contractors, and it's the ones that turn one into many are the most successful. Like if you can figure out that formula of turning that one job into multiple jobs down the road, whether it's that week, that next month, 6 months, or 3 years down the road, right? In developing your brand and your reputation and getting referrals from all of those past customers. It's super, super important. So as you started growing, it was like you were saying, it was just you for a while, right? So when did that change and what made it change for you?
All right. So our first employee was a project manager, which got me off the road. And what actually, all right. So this is really what happened. It was the middle of summer. We were very busy. I was project managing. I was doing sales. I was a one-man show, so I was doing the whole thing. And it's July or August, and I'd gotten engaged. We left our apartment. I believe we were at the time living with my in-laws, so my wife's parents. And it's one of those, I was up all night writing out estimates, getting stuff together, getting proposals together, getting things ready. Woke up early to get to the job site. It's hot. I haven't eaten, probably didn't eat dinner the past day. And I'm about to go get lunch. As I'm driving to get lunch, I get a call from the crew. They're like, or one of the crews, and they're like, hey, we need a bundle of caps. We're about to finish. So I'm like, all right. I was just about to get lunch, but I get it. you guys, it's hot. I want to get you guys off the roof. I understand. You guys start cleaning up. I'll go get the caps and I'll be right back. I go to the supplier. I'm driving back on 287, which is a major highway by us. And I passed out at the wheel. It's a highway, so I'm doing 60, 70, whatever. And I went across 3 lanes, I guess. And I actually hit an 18-wheeler. The 18-wheeler, I had at the time a GMC Sierra 1500 truck. The 18-wheeler didn't even feel me, I guess. It just kept going. So I had no idea that I was even there. Luckily, I hit the side of it and kind of bounced off of it, grabbed control, got over to the side. The whole side of my truck had a lot of damage, flat tires, body damage, all of that. And called the crew, told them they're not getting their caps yet. And then I called my fiance at the time and told her what happened. And that night, her and her parents too kind of sat down with me and were like, look, you're doing great. We believe in you. We're proud of what you built. You need help. Otherwise, you can't scale this. And this is obviously not sustainable. Like, look what just happened today. What's going to happen in the future? And that really kind of scared me. I was always too afraid. I had this mindset of keep it low cost, low overhead. I could do this all myself. I have the knowledge of the labor end. I have the marketing. I have the finance. Like, I can do this. I can do this whole thing myself. I don't need anybody. And that completely changed my mindset. We went out and hired our first employee. He got me off the road and was a godsend. He was super helpful. I'm still super, appreciative of him to this day. And then we grew from there. Kept on bringing on more and more positions. One of those being marketing manager. That was one that I was really struggling with because that I felt really strongly about that I could do myself. And, it seems like one of those jobs, at least for me, I felt like I had the talents. I'm like, it's such an easy thing in my mind. Like, it's marketing. This is it's such an easy, cool, fun job to do. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't have time to execute it, you're doing yourself a complete disservice. And get somebody on your team that could come in and think about marketing every single day instead of you just saying, yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do that. And then on one random weekend, putting a few things together and then in your mind being like, yeah, I did marketing this week. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. So that's a crazy story, John. This is like the most extreme version of you need to hire people, right? Yeah. I love the story for everyone to hear it because other people may not have an accident like that where they kind of fall asleep at the wheel because they're burning the candle at both ends and all into the job.
Yeah.
But there is a lesson there, and there are people that can help, right? And there are people that can do the job as good as you can, even if they can't. Like how you were talking about, marketing. I want to do marketing. If you're not doing it 100% of the time, then even if you're better than the person you hire, but they're doing it every hour of every day, they are better than you.
Right.
If you hire a sales rep that is selling and following up with prospects and just doing sales activity all day, every day, they're going to outsell you if you're managing production and selling and doing marketing and managing collections and picking up things from the supplier and bringing it to the job sites. And right when you have people focused on specific functions in the business, they don't have to be as good as you, right? Like and not that was maybe that, I don't know if that was a hang up for you or not. Maybe speak to that a little more. Like why, like you kind of said, like, I think I could just do it myself, but what, like, why were you thinking that way? And maybe you have, I don't know if you thought about that or not, but.
Yeah, I had a scarcity mindset. I was afraid. At the time when it was just me, we were doing around 2 million, and that was like it was like a year and a half in maybe. And I felt like, I'm like, all right, if I could keep this up, this is okay. I can support my family. I could do this. Like, there's a future here. And I didn't, any cost that came to mind, I was afraid to spend it. I felt like the harder I worked, the more hours I could do, the more profitable we would be. And I didn't need anybody else. I thought that I was different. I'm not. I'm human. I think in sports, we say hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that's kind of, I had the talent, but when you're running, when you get to a certain number, you just don't have the capacity to put in that hard work. Well, even if you're willing to do it, you just don't have the time, period. There's other areas. There's certainly a leap of faith, and I've encountered that many times and continue to as we continue to hire. You gotta have the faith in yourself. You can't get too caught up in what's the economy going to do? What's this? What's that? Is it going to serve your team better? Is it going to serve the customer better? If so, you just have to have faith that it's going to grow your business in a positive direction.
For sure. Like that's it, and the faith is the hard part for people, I think. There's another hard part that I've heard from some contractors who are kind of in that phase, and some that I know that are at like pushing 4 million almost by themselves, right? Like it's crazy to me. Like that they working 18-hour days and burning out, that they're like, they don't. It's a weird thing to me, and I'm not saying that this was you. It's just something that came to my mind, that like they don't want to let go of the money.
Yeah.
like I'm making this much money now. Like it's a weird thing that people don't want to, like they think of it as going backwards maybe. Like, I made 300 grand last year and like I'm doing really great. But if they hired a couple of good people, they think they would have made less.
I agree. And that's where I was. That's exactly where I was. I just finished rereading the book Go Giver.
Wow.
And I think that speaks to this directly, and there's truth to it. It's scary to take the leap. Like anybody could sit down and tell you giving is better than taking, and give you all of these phrases and analogies that sound good and sound like you're, being a good person works. It is scary when you're the one that has to do it, and you have to take that jump by yourself of putting that cost out and pray that it comes back. But it does. And it's, we said at the start of this podcast, in terms of marketing, like it's a slow compounding process. I think that speaks to what we're talking about now too. I think that kind of hits on all aspects of life, a slow compounding process.
Yeah. That's what I say. Like it's to me, like business is phase 1, do something. Phase 2, do something better than that. And phase 3, do something better than that, right? It's these slight iterations. A lot of times we look at, wow, like, to have a $10 million company, I need like 10 people, right? I need all these people. Man, that's overwhelming. And my goodness, the yearly payroll for those people would be like this. But if you're moving through those slow iterations, and like you did, you hired your production manager, and then and then there's the next person, the marketing person, or this person, and that person, and it's just the slow iteration of that. And all of a sudden, you have that team to do the huge revenue, right, and support it, and go home and have like time with your family, right?
Which is very important as you learn.
So what are some of the lessons that you learned in hiring and delegating along the way?
I think exactly what you just said before. If somebody could do something 80% as good as you, that is plenty.
Mm.
Get out and stop doing that. You have to take the leap of faith. You have to have processes and systems set up. There has to be a structure. I'm guilty of, in my mind, I know what these guys should be doing from each level. And like, why didn't the project manager contact the production manager who then contacts operations? But in my mind, I know what's supposed to happen, but without it being written somewhere or in video format, anything, it doesn't happen because people will second guess, even if it's the simple answer. They want you to confirm, hey, I am doing the right thing, right? And you got to have SOPs for it. If they have something to reference, then it eliminates that. Otherwise, they're always coming to you, no matter what, just to be sure and double check. And as owners, I think sometimes we're also guilty of, we kind of want people to come to us to feel like we're important. Like, yeah, we're the ones that know everything. It's hard to delegate and say, hey guys, go do your thing. There's times that they make a decision and you're like, yes, they made a decision. And it's not what I would do. And I'm scared to death because I'm like, oh God, they made the wrong decision in my opinion. That means we're going to go out of business. But it works out. Like they own their decision. If it doesn't work out, you pivot, you do something else. But there's something to them taking ownership of that decision that was made and running with it. It'll produce a positive outcome.
So one thing I heard from you is that if you're struggling with this, right? If you're struggling with giving up control of a certain part of your business to an employee, the first thing that you should do is create some SOPs, right? Like just start a simple framework of steps that you would take in this situation. SOPs are a weird thing. A lot of people look at them like that they are fixed documents, but they're not. They can change, right? Everything can, like, they can grow and change over time. They can be expanded on. They can be contracted, right? There's a lot of things that you can do with that. The other part that I think a lot of times business owners hire when they need someone, and they hire too late. So the need is so great that they put someone in that position and that person doesn't get a chance to learn. That person doesn't get a chance to to spend some time with the owner and learn how they do things and shadow them. And if you hire when you are drowning and need people and throw them in the lake with you, they might drown with you, right? But if you can hire them beforehand, anticipate, you know what? I think we're going to get to this next year. And in that, we're going to need these people. And so to have good people, I need to hire them sooner than later. How are you looking at hiring now that you're, much further along your journey?
Yeah. So I think two things on this. So SOPs are a very corporate-y term. And I know for myself and probably many others, as you're growing the business, especially, you're like, all right, well, I'm not this Fortune 500 company. I don't need SOPs. You do. Just, it'll make your life so much easier as you grow. Get it done early. I was terrible with SOPs. I hated writing down processes. Just, if you have to, just do video, record something on your computer, show them how to do it, speak about it, upload it to whatever database you want to. That's my advice on SOPs. Just do it somehow, somewhere.
Just do it. Yeah.
In terms of hiring today, our hiring process has changed dramatically. I mean, from me picking, anybody with a pulse of hey, who can run material for us? I need help, please, right now. We've evolved since then, but we've gradually gotten, like you said before, better, and now better than that, now better than that, now better than that. Today, we focus tremendously on culture. We ask specific pointed questions about core values. We score that much higher than the skill and talent portion or experience. So we're looking at it much differently today than we are even really 2 years ago. So
yeah. And it's the evolution, right? Like it's the evolution of things. It doesn't all have to be perfect in the beginning, right? Like things can change, things can evolve, and they will evolve. But it sounds like that you have a mindset of make it better. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What got you here won't necessarily get you there. And a lot of times, like looking back on some of the hires that we made quickly and, didn't really think too much about it, it still got us to the next level. Maybe that's capped at where that person could go in their potential, but it got us to here. And now we understand what we need. And now we need somebody else to get us to the next point.
Yeah. That's great advice. What do you think the greatest insight is that you could share with the audience that's helped you find success in your roofing business?
The greatest insight. I would say the greatest insight would be somebody told me this. A lot of this stuff really just, no matter what you believe in, a higher power, whatever, life is crazy how it works. One of the things that really changed Blue Nail and myself was early on, I was invited up to Boston to a NERCA event, which is the Northeast Roofing Contractors Association. And I went honestly because I wasn't busy. I'm like, all right, yeah, sure, I'll go to one of these things. I don't even know what it's about, but what else am I doing? I'm sending out mailers to people hoping somebody calls me. We weren't doing much revenue at the time. So I go up there. I was invited by another roofer in our market, but he does commercial, and he's got a big, very successful company, and they do a lot of work. So I'm like, oh, he's telling me to come up to this seminar. Sure. Like I'll go hang out with him. Worst comes to worst, we'll get dinner or something and I'll come home. I go up there, we go to a seminar, a coach / consultant type of person comes in, does a seminar, and I'm listening to him talk, right? And we were talking before about scarcity mindset. So I'm sitting there and I'm half listening. I'm like, all right, here we go. Here's somebody that's going to try to pitch me something. And I'm listening, and he's saying that he's operated multiple, high volume, high revenue businesses. He's been in the roofing industry. He's done all these things. At this point, I haven't even heard of anybody doing over, like 10 million would have blown my mind, absolutely blown my mind at that point. So we're talking, or I'm listening to the seminar, half listening at least. It ends, we walk out of the room, and I'm talking to the commercial contractor that I know. And he's like, what do you think of the seminar? And I'm like, yeah, it's, who knows? He was probably lying about half the stuff. And, that's what people do. They come here and they try to sell you on this dream, and they probably haven't done it themselves. And he just quietly kind of looked at me and was like, seems like he knows his stuff. Maybe you should talk to him. And that just stuck with me. We didn't discuss it really anymore after that. And I ended up signing up for this coaching program. Again, a scary thing. I'm like, all right, this is going to cost me money. I'm thinking I'm going to get scammed, but it was legitimate. And I really believe in coaching. I've done different programs over time. Like what we just said before, what got you here won't get you there. So I think that there's different coaching programs that fit in different spots, but just compress that time. We wouldn't be where we are today if I was trying to figure this all out on my own. There's no chance. So learn from others, be willing to pay for it. Paying for some coaching and consulting is going to save you a lot of paying for mistakes and speed it up way faster and get you to where you want to be. So I believe in that. I'm a big I'm a big advocate for coaching and things like that. So
that's awesome, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more revenue through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com to get a copy of the book, The Best Known Roofer. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. Thanks for listening.